When it comes to fasting, we think of just using fasting for losing weight. But there's so many other great benefits when it comes to fasting. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the benefits of fasting when it comes to our brain. So stay tuned after this intro. Hi, I'm Dr. LeGrand, and I am a family doctor out here in the state of Washington, where I primarily focus on holistic medicine and conventional medicine, bringing those together to help my patients with their conditions. So if this is your first time on our channel, consider subscribing if you want more information on health tips, on fasting, intermittent fasting, and other detoxification videos. Valerie Vitality asked the question, Doctor, can you explain in detail how fasting benefits for the heart? I've heard it performs better in a keto state. Thank you for all your time and effort. P.S. Also the brain benefits. Thank you, Valerie Vitality, for the question. Now I'm going to talk about the brain benefits because I've already talked about how the heart benefits with fasting, and I'll go ahead and leave a card up here that you can click on that video. But if you want more information about how the heart is benefited through keto diet, go ahead and leave that in the comment section below, and I'll make sure to make a video on that. So when it comes to fasting and the benefits, especially for the brain, there's so many out there. If we look back in history of what people thought about fasting, here's a few quotes I just wanted to state. One being Plato. Plato once said, "I fast for greater physical and mental efficiency." Also, Philippus Paracelsus, one of the three founders of Western medicine, once said, "Fasting is the greatest remedy, the physician within." So you can imagine just these two great minds alone, these people did fast on a regular basis and they have great minds. So there's got to be something to it. I know that's not enough for you, but let's go ahead and dive into the science. So I'm going to talk about 7 different ways that fasting can benefit the brain. The first way that fasting can benefit the brain is that it can reduce inflammation. So one way it could do that is that we know when we're in a fasting state, we go in a ketosis state. We're breaking down those ketone bodies from our fat cells. We know that. But what's interesting is one of these ketone bodies that are broken down is called hydroxybuterate. What's unique about this type of ketone is it actually blocks inflammation. How it does that? It blocks a particular molecule called inflammation, which inflammation is a precursor to a lot of the inflammation that we get, and essentially inflammation into our brain. The other way that inflammation can be decreased is through autophagy. So when we're in a big fasting state, autophagy goes up. I've talked about this before. Autophagy is essentially eating up old cells and allowing the new cells to be regenerated and increase. It's like getting rid of old rust in our system, in our body, to get rid of it. We don't need those old cells. We want to be able to increase new cells and get rid of the old ones, and our body's more efficient. And then of course it increases the inflammation in our brain, and that'll help increase our cognition, memory, and focus. The second way that fasting can benefit the brain is that it increases neurogenesis and brain synapses in our brain. A study that was done by Mark Mattson, who is a professor of neurobiology at John Hopkins, they found that in a fasted state, especially when they studied with a lot of different mice and rats, that they found in a fasting state there was increase of neurogenesis, which is essentially the building of brain cells in our body. It also increased not only the brain cells, but also it increased synapses in the brain that helps with the cognition and memory for us. The other thing that he found is that neurotrophic factors were increased in a fasted state. And neurotrophic factors, what they are is they are essentially a factor that protects the neuron cells and helps with regeneration of cells. So people who have Alzheimer's or a degenerative brain condition really can benefit from this. There's been multiple studies done on the neurotrophic factor BDNF, which they have found that has increased 40 up to 400% during a fasting state. And again, this particular neurotrophic factor helps protect the cells, it helps regenerate cells, brain cells, and also helps with, along with that, of course, cognitive function, memory, and awareness and clarity. In a recent study, they took average weightlifters in a fasted group and a non-fasted group. And not only were they trying to see if there was overall improvement in their body, but they wanted to see the cognitive function. And they fasted them for 48 hours versus the other group that didn't fast it at all. And what they found, not only did their blood pressure decrease and heart benefits, cholesterol, they found all these great things, but they found that their prefrontal cortex improved in cognitive function. They also found that mental flexibility was enhanced. The third way that fasting can benefit the brain is it can increase our senses and awareness. A recent study that was done on rats that were measuring orexin levels. Now, orexin is a neuropeptide that is responsible for arousal, increase of appetite, awareness and alertness, all these senses that kind of heighten it, especially for a sense of smell, of memory. And what they did is they took 3 different sets of rat groups. One was in a fasted state. The other group, they penetrated through the lateral ventricle of the brain to induce orexin. And then the other group was the control group. So in each one of these groups, they introduced an odor that was concentrated. They wanted to test the memory of the odors with the rats, which is a very important instinct for mammals for survival, to actually have that memory of where certain foods are. The interesting thing that they found is that not only was the fasted group just as high as the group that actually was induced with the orexin, but it sometimes was a little bit higher. So the connection of that fasting can increase our orexin levels can really find the mechanism of increasing our olfactory memory pathways that ultimately is really significant when it comes to fasting, increasing our senses and our awareness. I know for me, when I do prolonged fast or just do fast in general, my senses are heightened. I can taste better, I can see better, I can smell better. I've always believed this, but it's nice to see that research is starting to show that our senses can be, and our awareness can be heightened when we do fasting. The fourth reason of why fasting can benefit our brain is using fat for a fuel and not glucose for a fuel. So we all know that when we're in a fasted state, we break down our ketone bodies, which is essentially from our fats. We're using fat as our fuel. So before the keto diet was a big popular diet, it was used for maintaining people who had seizures. And it still is used today to help maintain seizures because the fat fuel can really help the brain. It can help our nerves. So using fat for fuel for our brain and not carbohydrates, which essentially is what our brain uses, is the glucose. But once we get rid of all the extra storage glycogen in our liver and our muscle cells, then we really don't have to depend on the glycogen because it's gone, and we now can depend on fat storage, ketones, that can help with increase our cognitive function and memory. The fifth reason of why the fasting can benefit the brain is human growth hormones. So fasting can increase human growth hormones. We've talked about this before, but when you increase human growth hormones, that can not only help retain and build our muscle cells when we're in a fasted state, but it also can help with neurogenesis. It can help protect our neurons. It can also help rebuild neuron function, which then leads to improved cognitive function, memory, awareness, and so forth. The sixth reason of why fasting can help with your brain is going back to Dr. Mark Mattson, and he talks about how fasting, what they found is that fasting increases mitochondria. Now, mitochondria is particular cells that we need to use that produces energy for our cells. So when you're increasing essentially mitochondria in your system, it's like putting extra batteries in your body so you can have more energy. And so what they found with the increase of mitochondria, not only did it increase energy, it also increased the ability for neurons to increase the synapses to the brain, which then of course led to better cognitive function, memory, and awareness. Now, the seventh and final reason of why fasting can benefit the brain is it can help improve our mood. For our anxiety, stress, whenever we're dealing with any kind of issues there, it can actually help improve that. But an interesting study, before you just take my word for it, there was an interesting study that was recently done with particularly women, and they had them fast in a 72-hour state and then a group that didn't fast at all. And what they were measuring is they wanted to measure the metabolism of the brain. They wanted to see the function of the brain. So the things that we typically use for our brain is glutamine, glutamate, choline, and creatine. So when they were measuring these different types of nutrients and metabolism in the brain, what they found in the fasted state, not only did their mood improved versus the people that weren't fasting, they found that the brain was able to regulate a lot of these different types of nutrients in the brain. And the metabolism was able to compensate when it was in a fasted state. Now, we know that when you're in a fasted state, our body can be a little stressed, but not overly stressed. It does compensate, this is very interesting. Not only did the mood improve, but it also compensated for it. compensated moving a lot of the brain chemistry. So those are my 7 reasons of why fasting can benefit the brain. Hope you liked this video. If you did, go ahead, give us a big thumbs up, and then share with your family and friends. And then if you have any questions about fasting and the benefits of the brain, or any kind of benefits, or any other fasting questions, go ahead and leave a comment in the comment section below. And if this is your first time on our channel, go ahead and subscribe over here, hitting this button, and I'll leave a playlist over here for our other fasting videos, and then over here I will leave another one about the fasting benefits with the heart. So thank you for watching. As always, I love you guys, and until next time, this is Dr. Grand out. Thanks. Bye.